Everyone, and welcome to another episode of Yearbook News. I'm here with Sarah.
I'm Sarah. Nice meeting you.
And we are back to school. And so we have an exciting podcast today on confidence, chemistry, and character for yearbook staff members. We think it'll be really helpful for any advisors out there, whether you are new or you're seasoned, to be able to just facilitate an environment of growth. And for you guys to all just be able to learn from one another, build that confidence, build that chemistry, and build that character. So let's go ahead and get started. Sarah, how would you say that advisors can kind of help new staff members feel confident stepping into their roles, even if they have little to no yearbook experience?
I think for example, create a culture that training, learning, asking questions, even making mistakes are allowed within the yearbook class. So oftentimes people don't have confidence because they don't know. They don't know about certain subject matter. They don't know about how to go about creating a yearbook layout. They don't know how to use the software that can complete the entire yearbook. I would say with a lot of training and in a progressive way, so that the yearbook staff is not being fed with a lot of information within a short period of time or within the first week when they meet. So the training needs to be very progressive and oftentimes before they start to work again, reviewing the note so that the yearbook staff can be refreshed. Because before the yearbook class, beside the yearbook class, they also have other classes. So if there is opportunity for the yearbook advisor to review some of the important notes at the beginning of the class, that will help the student to remember what they learned in the previous session. And then that will create confidence not only in the day, but over time, they'll feel confidence throughout the school year.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to mention, that it's like a progressive confidence as well. And so I think being able to recognize that maybe new students are going to go in feeling a little like worry about it, but once you let them facilitate that environment, they start to build that confidence over time. And I would also say, like, we've talked about student ownership in the past before. And I think, once you set up that mindset for students from the very beginning of, yes, you may not have experience in the yearbook, but this is what the yearbook is, and this is what you get to do for your school, and this is the kind of legacy that you're going to create. I think it also kind of will build that confidence in them realizing, like, okay, I may not know all the different logistics I'm going to learn throughout the year, but I know what my mission is and I know what my goal is, and that's to create like an incredible final product. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think what you said is great. And I think, we talk a lot about student ownership. We have blog posts on it as well. So I'm going to link some things down below for anyone for those specific resources on student ownership. And we'll talk about a few more things. But yeah. And I think another thing that comes with that is kind of like this fear of making mistakes, in a high pressure yearbook environment, especially for those students who have never done the yearbook before, and they may be a little bit more scared about making mistakes. How can you kind of like give those practical steps to let them overcome that fear of making those mistakes?
Earlier I mentioned create a culture, making mistakes is allowed within the yearbook class. But the thing that makes making repeat mistake, is that they are two different things. So if the staff constantly make mistake, that means they just don't get it, or they don't care, or they just need more training and review of the note. So then that's the point when the advisor or a student leader have to sit down with the yearbook staff who has make ongoing mistake and find out what's going on. It could be something that happened in their personal life that affect the performance in the yearbook class. So that could be a lot of factors. I think at the end of the day, find out what caused the ongoing mistake. But usually for the yearbook staff who truly want to be in the yearbook class, once additional training is provided, they will be able to just overcome and be able to do the work with no further training, but more accountability and audit and check the work.
Yeah, and I think that like constructive criticism can also go into that, and having like a positive mindset about any of the feedback that you're receiving, rather than pointing out a mistake and taking ownership of it, seeing it as a negative, seeing it as like a growing opportunity, right? And so creating like an environment where students feel that constructive criticism is something that's positive, really goes a long way for them. And so I think there are different ways to do that, having students get together and, put out creative thoughts, and then they kind of will, you know, give constructive feedback on whatever that may be. And so then they can learn to be like, okay, so this person is giving me this feedback in this way. I can use that as a stepping stool to grow my creative direction, But is there anything else you would say for like constructive criticism and like the staff within staff members?
I would say practice using positive words, because words have power. So if a yearbook advisor or a fellow student leader or yearbook staff use negative word, for example, oh, you're not going to make it. You're not going to be able to finish the page layout. You're not really good. All these are very negative words and languages that can affect the yearbook staff, who's just trying to learn and gain some experience. So be very cautious. Maybe the advisor can even have a short lecture about the important using word that empower the fellow yearbook staff. At the end of the day, each yearbook staff cheers for one another, regardless one staff is struggling with completing the work or falling behind the deadline. Each one needs an accountability partner, including the yearbook advisor. So I think create an environment to share gratitude, to be grateful, to encourage one another with positivity. That is going to be able to take care, of a lot of fear, and also the propensity of making more mistakes, because sometimes people make mistakes when they are afraid. They will make more mistakes when they are not able to overcome that fear.
Yeah, that's really good. Words do have power, and like you were saying, the advisor can set the precedent of the kind of words that are used within the classroom. And I think going along with, the advisor kind of being the leader and what staff members look up to, how would you say that advisors can really model that confidence within their own leadership, especially, during a chaotic season where there's deadlines, or, staff members kind of look to the advisor to see how the advisor is reacting?
I would say teachers, they already receive professional training and also from the classroom. So they're expert in teaching. So I think it's the material in the scope of yearbook advising, what company like us, United Yearbook, can provide to teacher to learn, for example, about the software, the lesson plan on walking their yearbook staff to create the yearbook theme. So when teachers are equipped with these tools and resources from their yearbook publisher, they'll become confident in delivering this material to the yearbook staff, because they first have to learn the material before they can teach. Again, teaching is not a problem because they're expert in teaching. But I think what's most important for advisor is for them to learn the material and translate it into a method so that they can deliver this information to the yearbook staff, so that they can take in the information and be able to do the work on their own.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think, I think specifically of new advisors, who say like, oh, well, I don't know where to start at all. I say like reach out to your publisher, reach out to us if we have so many different resources for new advisors, and become well learned in everything that you want to go over, so you can have that confidence with your staff members and you can display that to them. And I think also being willing to learn alongside your staff members goes a long way, because sometimes maybe a staff member will have like a certain idea or whatever it may be, and you can kind of learn from them as well as them learning from you throughout the year. And so I think it does go both ways, but you do set the tone for your class as a whole,
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. And then so thinking of like the beginning of the school year and how, this the team needs to kind of bond, right? And you need to have like some type of camaraderie. What would you say are some like activities or creative ways to build that trust and kind of friendship among staff members right from the beginning?
Oh, I would say, first of all, why bonding time is so important. Because the yearbook staff and the advisor will be working together for a good 9 months or even 10 months before the summer break. So it's very critical for them to build trust among themselves. Now, I've seen a lot of very creative ways how advisor lead the student to create bond between them and also among the staff. Like food is also a winner. For example, having a pizza party, going out for tea or boba or a Starbucks run. So I think a lot of very inexpensive way for them to create that bond. And also there's some example is to play games inside the classroom. So, and also games that are targeting to helping the staff get to know each other, get to know each other's weakness and also the strength, and learn to appreciate each other's difference. So when they do start working together as a team, they already have some information about their background, some familiarity, of who the fellow yearbook staff is. I think it's going to set the tone of like a family, a family work together, but in the yearbook class. So it's going to set the tone of having that confidence and the joy already working with people they know at the beginning of the school year.
Yeah, that's good. And I think specifically of just icebreakers and how important those are, like the games you're mentioning. I think specifically of like two truths and one lie. And so you get together and you say two truths about yourself and then one lie, and then everyone has to guess what that is. And then, you're starting to learn about that person, very unique qualities. Also, there's one icebreaker that I saw that an advisor has done before is where you find three very unique commonalities between one another person within the group. And so, it can be something like, oh, I'm bilingual. And then that person needs to go find someone else that's bilingual. And you kind of introduce yourselves and you learn from one another. And so it's very interesting because there are so many different ways to create that bond, like you were saying, Sarah. And like you said, food is an important thing, and we'll go over that a little bit more later on. But yeah, so look up icebreakers. There's so many different things out there to create really fun and unique activities for your staff members. And you did mention a little bit about like admiring one another's differences as well. How would you say, advisors would be able to kind of encourage the ability to work with maybe different personalities or working styles when it's not as easy?
I would say advisor may even create a spreadsheet, of specific character trait, background, personality of each of the yearbook staff, and find opportunity to highlight a specific yearbook staff member and how their difference make a difference in the page layout or a contribution in the yearbook part, or for example, taking picture at a game when the other yearbook staff cannot make it, how their difference. For example, one yearbook staff is bilingual, can speak Chinese, and they can speak Chinese and interview one of the students in their native language. So if the yearbook staff can highlight very unique difference of a yearbook staff, then this will boost instant encouragement and confidence in that member. So I think it's very important for teacher, and teachers is expert in this, in create that energy inside the classroom. But being intentional to create opportunity to highlight the different staff is also very important. And I've seen advisors do that, and I would encourage new advisor to do that throughout the school year, so that each student feel, wow, the different is special and does make a contribution into the creation of the yearbook process.
Yeah, that's really good. I love that. And I think that's especially important when you think of those certain like staff members who may kind of want to do everything on their own. You know what I mean? And they don't want the feedbacks. They don't want They don't want the different perspective. But when students recognize how positive the differences in their community are, they're more willing to be like, okay, I may be working on this page spread, but having that feedback from this, my fellow staff member will actually enrich this page spread rather than hinder it, and so giving them that perspective and allowing them to learn that as well, I think goes a long way. And so I like how you said just uplifting the differences.
Another example, for example, if a yearbook staff have certain disability, and to highlight their experience but overcoming, and if the school has a team or club tailored to student with special need, then the advisor can recruit that student to do a special interview, for their club, and also to ask them question opinion about things from their perspective, going through that experience as with a student with special need. So even what the world see them, someone on a wheelchair or with a certain disability, but from the teacher perspective, they can still contribute, to the yearbook staff with ideas, be empathetic, be relatable when they interview other fellow student with special need.
Yeah, they have a lot to offer. And then what would you say are some telltale signs of kind of a strong chemistry, and how do you foster more of that within the yearbook team?
I would say chemistry begin when the yearbook staff discover common ground. And when they discover common ground, let's, for example, through the games, some of the example of the games that we have made available in our curriculum, and the one that you mentioned about identify things that have in common. Chemistry start with when they trust each other, when they like each other. So I think having the opportunity to allow the yearbook staff to involve in those games, or even going out and talk about food. They can even have an outing just about food, and also maybe a game about the travel experience. So when the yearbook staff discover more common ground among themselves, that's when they create more chemistry. So chemistry have that trust element to it, as well as that common ground element. Come together, there's a lot of chemistry. It's almost like a couple go out on a date, get to know each other. When they find out they have so many common, I think the chemistry just boosts.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what something you kind of mentioned is it is over time as well, as you continue and you start off by facilitating this just strong partnership. The more that you facilitate it throughout the year, the stronger that chemistry is going to become, and the stronger that team is going to be.
Yeah, earlier I mentioned about the power of positive word, the power of word. Encourage an environment to express gratitude. For example, good job, thank you for doing this. I'm sorry if I miss, or even encourage the yearbook staff to use the word I'm sorry if I made a mistake, or if I did not do what I promised to do. So practice that open communication, and I think gratitude is very powerful if students use that throughout the school year.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. And like you said, that just sets the precedent for everything. Students will find gratitude in one another. Students will, see the goodness and have a good environment to be in, to be able to feel that partnership, and I think not only within their team, but I think that goes a long way, because that's something that they need to take on in their real world, in their families, whatever it may be, to be able to have that gratitude, to have that positivity, and to know how to kind of speak to one another as well as speak to themselves in different instances where maybe things are a little bit more stressful, as deadlines come up and everything like that. They'll be able to take that on, learn from that, and then be able to apply it as they continue to deal with different things that they face in life. So you really are setting the precedent for not only your yearbook team as a whole, but just how they carry on in life as a whole too.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, and then, we talked a little bit about this, but how would you say that staff members are able to kind of maintain that strong chemistry when those stress levels begin to get high and there's more tension that you kind of find and there's that crunch time that they're experiencing in the moment?
Well, I like there's a saying that two character reveals when a person is under high level of stress. So I think it's also a signal for the yearbook staff who go through high level of stress or who experience it and doesn't know how to manage it. So that's when they need to ask themselves the question, what is my heart condition on this? Am I really committed in doing this yearbook thing, or am I just using it to show off? And where is my anger? Where is my negative emotion come from? So I think before trying to point the finger to the other yearbook staff, ask themselves, why am I even feeling angry towards this person? So I think by practicing self-awareness and looking into the source of the certain feeling or emotion that help. And I would suggest, having the advisor to do a lesson on personality, on also stress management. We do have a curriculum and also a blog. We can also include that in the link in this podcast. So I think for the advisor to teach a student how to manage stress and just walk them through the process, how to identify it and how to overcome it, and also create that accountability on the ongoing process, because we all will go through stress. Yearbook staff will go through even more stress throughout the school year, particularly at the end when they get close to the submission deadline. So by keeping them accountable, by talking about it, by even pointing it out without embarrassing them when they are appear to be stressful, before they start acting out, the advisor can have a one-on-one talk with the advisor and find out what's going on and how she can provide that encouragement or even additional training and accountability or even support from a fellow yearbook staff.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I love how you talked about like where their heart is at in the moment of why they're doing it, because I think that goes back to, setting up what the ultimate mission and the goal of the yearbook is, right? And so when students are able to have that as their base point and recognize, okay, this is where my heart should be at. This is what I need to be focusing on. How can I get back to there? And like you mentioned, doing those check-ins as well, that's something that's very important. As the advisor, you get to see kind of the pulse of your staff members. You get to see, when one student might be a little bit more disengaged or one student is, acting differently or whatever it may be. And so being able to have, weekly check-ins or every other week, whatever it may be, to just kind of see what the pulse of the staff members are, especially, student leadership as well. They're taking on a lot of responsibility. They may be dealing with high stress levels with the classes that they're in, as well as all the responsibility they have within the yearbook staff. So checking in with those student leaders as well, and allowing those student leaders to also check in with other team members. Maybe some of your student leaders notice another student is kind of off that you didn't even notice, and that's like a wonderful time for you to kind of learn from them and then see how they can be there for that other staff member. So yeah, like you said, check-ins are really important. And then also always going back to what the main mission is, what your goal is for the yearbook, and what you're setting out to do for your school and the legacy. But, yeah.
Exactly. Yes. I like the idea of creating a pool so that I would do it on Monday so that the advisor can know what's going on in yearbook staff mind, whether they have something going on that can potentially impact them on delivering the deadline on time. Because doing it on Monday, because you have Monday to do something about it, or even early on Tuesday. Because Monday you have 4 days to finish more work. If you don't take care of, there's some issue that may potentially impact the work in the yearbook class at the beginning of the week. Then if you only discover in the midweek, then you literally lose Monday or Tuesday, or even a big portion of the week to get the job done efficiently and also accurately.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good point. You're catching it like right from the beginning and you're doing that. That's something that staff members can kind of recognize is going to happen often. And so they're prepared for it as well, you know?
Yeah, I would delegate this task to the leaders. Again, the work of the yearbook advisor and teacher is to advise, not to do the work. Just give student student leader opportunity to do what they would have done, also in the real life environment.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They give them that leadership opportunity, right? Let them
Exactly,
lead.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and what would you say character looks like in a yearbook team setting, and how does it show up in their day-to-day work?
I would say the first thing that came to mind is to do what you promise, do what you have been assigned according to your deadline. That means that based on being able to meet deadline, that also show whether the person is trustworthy and reliable. So that's one of the example.
Yeah, that's a good example. I mean, it's a great because that's day to day. They're showing up and they're supposed to do their work, right? And then you'll be able to see those certain qualities in your students as well, and you'll be able to see them just grow. You know, they grow so much throughout the year in all the different qualities as you set them up for success from the very beginning until the end.
I would say the advisor can also distinguish the difference between a soft skill and hard skill. For example, learning the online software or even using Photoshop or Adobe Design outside of the traditional online software program. Advisor can identify what students are good at in certain hard tasks, like actually doing the work. But soft skills are different. For example, teamwork, time management, stress management, these are all soft skills, or even communication. So walk the student through so that they know the difference. If they only have hard skill, learning, being able to do the work by themselves, but they disregard the teamwork, then they're only 50% because they can do the work, but they cannot work with each other. It's like a NBA team. If one really good player does all the scoring, but he cannot work with other team, the team will not be able to win because in an NBA game, everyone work together in order to win the game, right? It's not just one person's show, it's the entire team. Same as the yearbook staff. It is affect the entire team. One person work, one person way of doing things can affect the rest of the yearbook class.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, and that's something I think advisors should keep in mind, you know, throughout the year. And even thinking of just like hard skills specifically, you know, when you do recognize those different abilities that students have, you can, you know, utilize, you know, maybe one student is really good at graphic design, you know, lean into that and work with them in those different areas of strength. And obviously always be focused also on the soft skill aspect of it as well, like you were saying, because you know, without the other, if that you know team member is only focusing on themselves, then what good is that as well, you know?
Yeah, one other thing I just thought of is also very important. If a yearbook staff is coachable, now coachable is a soft skill, right? They can learn as much as someone who it has already have a lot of experience in Adobe Photoshop in design. So they can catch up much quicker if a yearbook staff come in with a mindset of learning and also is coachable. So again, have the advisor to walk with the student, walk them through to develop those skills throughout the school year.
Yeah, exactly. I think teachability, like you're saying, that coachability, modeling that to students as well as expressing constantly how important that is will go a long way. And I think that's not something that they just need within the classroom. They'll need that for life. So it's one of those things. You're setting them up for success by instilling that within them, you know?
Yeah, I would say, have the advisor to even call out a certain student, but in a positive way. Hey, that's teamwork, that's positivity, that's gratitude, that's communication.
Mhm.
So I think when advisors start doing that, even student leader, it's create a lot of excitement and energy that student again learn from each other difference, because person can have strength in different soft skill and also hard skill. So that's another way advisor can kind of create that environment, pinpointing, highlighting the difference, but in the context of soft and hard skills.
Yeah, that's very good. And I think we've touched quite a bit on, the real world aspect of it. Is there anything else you would say that kind of modeling this kind of yearbook success and teamwork and just character building would prepare them for not just like real world, but also academic and like vocational success as well?
For example, some yearbook staff, after they finish college, they get a job, they can have they may enter a advertising company, marketing firm, or advertising agency. They're gonna remember the hard and soft skill that they learned from the yearbook class during the high school year and apply them in the real world experience when they graduate from college and have a real job. For example, accuracy, meeting deadline. If in the real world you have a deadline to meet, for example, finish like in the publishing, they have to finish the layout of a magazine, a printed version, and if they do not submit the print ready files to the printer, it's going to be late, right? It's going to upset a lot of advertisers, and then there will be a financial consequence. Maybe they will lose client. So if the yearbook staff are able to master the skill, so when they finish college, when they start working in the real work environment, they understand the concept of and also the consequence of not meeting the deadline. Is in the real world, is they can even get fired, they can lose client, they can cause the company financial harm and damages. So, but if they are able to learn that the consequence may be missing a deadline or getting a bad grade, right? So this is the yearbook class is just a practice for yet is to come, what they will face in the real world.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is maybe one of the first of many, high stakes situations that they'll be placed in, like you're saying, of meeting those deadlines and understanding what that means for them to have to meet that. And it's just everything you were saying. And I'm also thinking of like, for their academic success as well. Even just thinking of like working as a team and receiving feedback well, if they're able to receive that feedback, from you as the advisor, then as they go forward, they can receive that feedback from professors or mentors or whoever it may be, and that will continue to grow them and lead them into, the next step of success.
You just mentioned about receiving feedback. For example, it's very important the yearbook staff have to also, we didn't talk about the humility. Humility is so important, so critical. Like for example, a lot of yearbook advisors incorporate critique sessions when the yearbook staff complete the page layout. So it could be very terrifying for some student who never experienced having their work being critiqued. But if they are accustomed to receiving feedback and make changes, even they disagree, when they go to work in a real world experience in a job environment, when they get feedback from their coworkers or from their supervisor, they are more receptive because they remember the experience, the learning experience that they have when they were a yearbook staff.
Yeah, that's such a good point. That's such a good point. There's so many things that I think advisors will just be able to think about, now recognizing that yes, you're building such like a successful yearbook team, but you're also building and instilling something for all of your staff members' futures as well.
The teachers can also create that mindset in the student mind. Hey, this is if you're able to master skill when you go to your dream job after college graduation, you will already be prepared. Kind of, have the advisor to tie the student experience with the future real work experience and encourage them. And you're going to be ahead of the game when you're able to master the skill of being receptive in receiving feedback and incorporate other people's recommendation if your work, even you disagree.
Yeah, exactly. Instilling that from the very beginning so they're always thinking ahead. Like this is going to be useful for me in this way, and just keeping that focus, for what their future holds.
Exactly,
Um,
yes.
yeah. And so we've talked about confidence, we've talked about chemistry, we've talked about character. How would you say that those, we like to call them the three C's, how do they work together to create that high performing yearbook team that we've been talking about?
I would say these are critical, these are essential for a yearbook class to be able to experience a successful yearbook class throughout the school year from start to finish. And it is critical for them to be able to come up with the most innovative and creative work and ideas, because again, it comes with teamwork, it comes with yearbook staff who are receptive in receiving each other recommendations. It also allows the advisor to experience less stress, because if they're able to master time management at the beginning of the school year and they incorporate that skill throughout the yearbook class from the beginning of the school year to the submission deadline, then they will be able to deliver the print ready files on time. And also, when they have good time management, they also have room to proofread the entire publication. So there'll be less chance of error, because they already incorporate the room, um, to press check and also to modify the design, and also for the admin to approve everything before printing. I would say one thing that's very important is not to crunch everything in the last minute, because when you do that, I can guarantee, based on what we have observed on other school agency, there will be mistake when you try to rush or wait for the last minute. But when you spread it out, when you're able to master these skills, we call the three C's, then they will ensure they will deliver the publication in the highest quality, the way the yearbook staff want, and also on time, so that everyone will receive a yearbook. Everyone who ordered a yearbook will receive the yearbook before everyone is dismissed for the summer break. So I think it's like the impact is going to have a long-lasting impact, because a yearbook, once it's printed, is permanent. So if a yearbook have a lot of error, it's going to carry on for so many years. It's going to reflect back the work the yearbook staff have created. So I think it covers everything. If they want to have a full package of great, successful yearbook experience in the school year.
Yeah, that was a great way of just like answering that. And I loved just what you said about it's permanent, and I think giving students that like knowledge from the very beginning, that'll continue and like further their like need to do it in excellence, right? Do every page spread, do the proofreading, do every, caption that they do, that every photograph they take, recognizing, oh wow, this is permanent. And we're once it's printed, once it's published, like once we hand it out, there's nothing I can do to take back and erase it or anything like that. But yeah, so I love what you said about that, the three C's, and how they're just integral for success ultimately. And once advisors are able to just kind of harbor an environment where you really focus in and allow students to grow and nurture an environment for them to grow within those three C's, it really does make all the difference for them.
Yeah, I think that the three C's also serve as a guideline for the advisors. How to create the tone, set the culture at the beginning of the school year. Because one of the C is about confidence, chemistry, characters. If a student who go through the interview, the yearbook staff do not see all the three C's, then if the advisor understand what all these three C's means, then it's very easy for them whether to let the student in the yearbook class or whatnot. Because if the student, even if they're lacking of one thing, for some, they have chemistry, they are liked by everyone on campus, and they have confidence, but they don't have characters. For example, they never turn in the work on time. They're always late for school. So then if one C is missing, then the yearbook advisor know, okay, I'm not going to let this student in because we know the long-term effect for someone who cannot deliver the work on time. Because you cannot train someone character in 1 week, in 1 month. It is a lifelong training ground, for us, for anyone to build characters. So if one of the C's is missing, then advisor can easily see, even train their student leader to identify whether during the interviewing process that they have all the 3 C's.
That's a good point. It could be like a navigating point for them. Like, okay, check, no check. And so we can't continue. And how would you say, or could you share an example from a school that you've worked with that had all 3 C's, where you've been able to see them kind of come together and make magic happen?
Sure. Yeah, we have worked with this school in California for over 10 years. I would say that they're always an example and benchmark for what an ideal yearbook class should look like. For example, confidence. At the beginning of the school year, the yearbook staff may not have the skill in Photoshop, Adobe, in InDesign, but the advisor already have curriculum, already have lesson plan on making sure each of the yearbook staff is skilled in this Adobe program. So from there, he also makes sure the fellow team member who is good in the software will support each yearbook staff by training them, keeping them accountable, and he always team up 2 students to work on a page layout spread together, so that 2 is more than 1, so that the student can also remind one another, teach one another, give each one another a critique. So that's confident. It's an ongoing, but the training is provided among the yearbook staff, because once the advisor deliver the lesson plan, have a lecture, then the rest will be left to the student to apply what they learned during the lecture in the application, in the work they do. Second is the character. They already filter. They have a very vigorous interviewing process that are conducted by the student leaders. So there are 3 student leaders. If they have a list of questions and to ask the potential yearbook staff, if they all agree this person meet the character they're looking for in the yearbook class, they let them in. If not, they're not going to let the student join the yearbook class for the next school year. And then the last thing is the chemistry, whether they're likable, whether they enjoy teamwork, whether they even create chemistry with the student leader who interviewed them. So I would say during the interviewing process by the student leaders, the advisor can also have a final interview with the potential yearbook staff to make sure the student leader are able to see all this. So I would say, because the yearbook advisor have already provided vigorous training and also a lot of trust to their own student leader. So the interviewing process is pretty much handled by the yearbook student leaders. And I would say, and also they do a lot of outing, like Boba run, Starbucks run. They go eat different athlete groups, like food. So food, that they also have a lot of snack recommended by the yearbook staff. So the yearbook class is almost like a food truck, because it have refrigerator, it have like shelf for snack. So those snacks are tailored to students and encourage them to work during the break, during the period when they have no class, even stay after school, even stay late, even come in to work on the weekend. So I would say this school was have able to meet all the 3C, and they have been able to meet the deadline on time, and it's one of the publication that we are very proud of having produced all these years.
Yeah, and I think, within that same school, they do so many very unique things that I don't see like a lot of advisors doing. Like they'll create Christmas cards together, and they're kind of silly, and then they'll do volunteer for like different food drives or things like that. They'll do something good together and make something fun together as well, apart from just the work that they're doing. They really create and like harness that friendship that they have within their team and that community. And so, something as simple as doing those Christmas cards every year, and then they hand it out to like all the different teachers and everything like that. That just creates like something, that the students look forward to and that they want to be a part of and they want to keep coming back for, apart from everything else that they're doing. So yeah, just being unique in the different activities that you do with your students and being able to just harness that good friendship within chemistry, I think is really positive.
I would say one of additional comment is the trust the advisor plays on the student leaders and also the yearbook staff to guide the leader to guide the fellow student to the completion of the work. Trust is very important, even allowing room for mistake, allowing a lot of room of handling stress and miscommunication. So I think at the end of the day, it's the trust the advisor places on the student. Of course, the advisor continue to monitor the progress on the side, but without constantly micromanage, how they do the work and what they do, because there's a critique section at the end of the day that the advisor can still say a no or yes or approval with conditions. So having that trust on the student is very, very important. But the student themselves needs to have the all three C in order to build that trust with the advisors.
Yeah, and I think part of that trust, like having that trust in those student leaders and those staff members, also gives them that confidence. It's like goes like that two-way where it's like they have the confidence, they build trust, but that's also giving back to them. The more they feel that they're trusted, the more confident that they become in their skills and their student leadership abilities and everything like that. So yeah.
Yeah, so I think having trust is very powerful because then the advisors and feel proud of the work the student do, and the yearbook staff themselves feel proud of the work they do on behalf of the school.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Okay, so what would you say, what is like one thing that advisors can start doing tomorrow to set their staff up for success this year within the 3 C's?
I would say create a spreadsheet to identify what are the specific things they should look for under each character trait. All right, and then if they have not interviewed yearbook staff, I know some schools they're kind of late. They're still interviewing a student potentially to join the yearbook staff, and they can use that spreadsheet to create a guideline during the interviewing process. Now, if they already have completed the interviewing process and they already have yearbook staff who are ready to grow and work, then they can go through this, but have a short lecture or a class to go through the 3C to educate their own students so that they learn, because they are going to carry this practice to college, to their first job. So if the advisor start incorporate this very high level professional vocational training material to the student, they're going to be ahead of the game. I would say get to know what these 3 C's. Again, we're going to incorporate the information in the link below, so the advisor will have this information to review and start off the yearbook class strong.
Yes, I love that. And then, okay, how would you say that they can kind of ensure that all three of the qualities don't just last at the beginning, but they carry on for the entire school year?
Accountability, monitoring. Earlier that you mentioned a weekly pool, and I suggested having it done on Monday. So that will be able to allow them to monitor the progress, not once a month, not twice every quarter, but it has to be done, I would say, on a weekly basis. It doesn't need to be long, but if you're able to do it consistently on a weekly basis, but if you're able to establish that trust, that consistent performance among the yearbook staff and the student leaders a good job, then you can reduce the number of survey or poll from once a week to bi-weekly, and then eventually once a month. So at the beginning of the school year, you have to do it on a weekly basis, maybe the first couple months of the school year.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think also, keeping it at the forefront of your mind, kind of like in everything that you're doing throughout the year as well. So, maybe having some type of poster or something on the whiteboard or something that kind of has a reminder of, confidence, chemistry, and character, of those different things that you want your students to speak from and to learn from and grow from throughout the year. And just, as you mentioned, just being able to continue to kind of harbor an environment throughout the year, not just being like, oh, I want to really teach this at the beginning of the year and then we'll go from there. It's like this continual ability to facilitate that type of environment and allow it to continue to flourish. Keep it going. Keep bringing in those snacks. Maybe you don't do icebreakers throughout the year because at the middle of the year you guys already all know each other. But do some other type of activity, like you've mentioned, boba run, ice cream run, something like that, to really continue to reset the class and allow them to refocus on that importance of that teamwork, and also just all of the different skills, abilities that they have, and allow them to grow in that environment. Yeah. And okay, so my final question for you, Sarah, is do you have any, final piece of advice for any new advisors, for any seasoned advisors, on just overall harnessing those 3 C's and carrying it on for, the students, and what it honestly means to the rest of the school as well?
I would say embrace the benefits of educating your fellow yearbook members what the importance of these 3 C's, what they are, and how they can create a successful yearbook class through the school year by incorporating them. But I would say, embracing them, make sure the yearbook team are on the same page, understanding what they are and how they can incorporate these 3C through the school year.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I'm going to leave, our information, our email down below. Some other, we've talked about some resources here. Don't feel like you can't reach out to us with questions about the 3C's or any other topics. We're happy to help any new advisors, any seasoned advisors, on this topic and other topics as well. We love being able to just be there for advisors, mentor advisors, and just kind of be there through them throughout the extensive yearbook process. We know that coming back to school after your summer break and going back into the grind of everything can be a little difficult. So we just want to encourage you to just, you got this. You're going to have a great year. You're going to have a wonderful yearbook product. And we're just so excited to see what the yearbook community does this year. And so we thank you. And if you have any questions, leave them down below. Bye, everyone.